Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's track guide for the IRO4. We're in Montreal at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for what should be a really fun and exciting week of racing. That said, the track is actually quite difficult in the IRO4. I found that the walls come at you very, very quickly, so you got to be careful about that. That said, I still think it should be fun. There should be some good passing opportunities, some nice, tight racing. It's all about minimizing your mistakes and maximizing your exits when it comes to all of the chicanes and tighter parts of the track so that you can get nice, good runs down the higher speed sections. But let's go ahead and take a look at the lap before we dive into the details corner by corner. Before we check out the track conditions and dive into the details, I do just want to ask that if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so now. There's a button somewhere down there, but it's super helpful for me as I try to grow this channel. It's helpful for you to get notifications when I come out with track guides every week, so it's really a win-win. Also, check out the description. There's things that are super useful like brake bias, telemetry for this lap on Garage 61, a link to my Twitch if you want to hang out with me live when I am streaming, a link to my Discord if you want to chat with me in Discord, or hit me up for coaching even. There's also like an affiliate link to Muradness.com in case you're looking for gloves. I know I pointed to them and then I didn't pick them up, so that was kind of silly. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff down there, so check out the description. Anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes here, check out the track conditions, and then see what we're doing breaking down each corner. Before we get started, let's take a look at our track conditions. We have a 21 degrees Celsius track with 19-degree air temperature and moderately low usage at 37%. This week we also have a rules tab. It's probably worth looking at to know where some of the off tracks and slowdowns are. That said, there isn't a ton of information here because generally if you're off track, you're probably touching a wall. So yeah, it just highlights a couple of the spots in the chicane, but nothing major. As for our laps, this is the first time I actually did laps in the IRO4 here. So we had some excursions. We definitely hit some walls here along the way, some spins, but I finally got this nice full fuel stint here at the end. This final lap, we were actually tracking for our fastest lap, so I really pushed it in the final chicane and ended up binning it. So don't be like me and do that in your race. Instead, yeah, make sure to keep it out of the wall. That said, this 136.467 is a pretty good lap. I think my optimal was like a 136.2 something. You can see that in the Garage 61 telemetry if you're interested in seeing what like that optimal lap would be. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and analyze this 136.467 to see how we got there. Turn 1 comes at the end of the pit straight and leads directly into the slow entry for turn 2, so we're looking to carry decent speed into the apex and slow through the corner as we set up for turn 2. We can start braking right around the grass patch where the one board is on the right hand side, and we're looking to wait just a little bit for turn in so we can grab a later apex to help us open up the entry for turn 2 on exit. At the apex, we want to use all of the flat curbing, but we have to be careful to avoid the lattice further inside because there's a hard lip there that can unsettle the car or damage the car. As we get to the apex, we want to be careful to wait for the car to rotate enough to open up for turn 2 as much as possible, so we're not looking for any sort of immediate throttle if we don't have that rotation. As the car rotates and settles on exit, we can give a quick burst of throttle if we want to before we shift our attention to braking for turn 2. Turn 2 is a long hairpin coming directly after turn 1, so we're working with a pretty slow entry. We're also exiting slightly uphill in our run down to turn 3, so we really want to focus our efforts on a good exit. As we transition out of turn 1, our primary focus is opening up for turn 2 and slowing the car down pretty soon thereafter to hold a nice tight line through the corner. We want to be patient as we come through turn 2 and not get on power too early because it can push us wide on exit. As we get to the later part of the corner, we can start to get back on throttle and run the car out to the exit curbing. On this lap, we start to fade away from the apex a little too early because we're carrying a little bit too much speed, so we have to delay our throttle application slightly. Ideally, we want to follow the apex curbing a little bit tighter for a little bit longer. Smoothness between turns 1 and 2 will help us get the exit we're looking for here by allowing us to hold a tighter line, and pushing a little bit too hard can easily lead to some unwanted adventures or running just a little bit wider than we want to, like we did here. Turns 3 and 4 make up the first chicane here at Montreal, and it's a tricky one because we're heading downhill on entry and through the corner, and there's a wall right on the edge of the exit curbing, so we have to make sure we don't go in too hot and understeer into that wall. Because we're worried about the wall and exit, we're looking for a very controlled entry that allows us to get back on throttle early and have a smooth, worry-free exit. We'll start braking right around the one board on the left-hand side, trailing off as we turn in and approach the apex. We're looking to use a healthy portion of the first apex curbing. Ideally, we want to use just a little bit less than I do here because the car can bottom out on the curbing if we use too much. On this lap, it doesn't hurt us too much, but it can make getting to the second apex and exit a little tricky if you hit it wrong. As the car settles on the first apex, we can start to get back on throttle, but our eyes should really be focused on the road ahead at our exit. Looking further up here will allow us to make the judgment call of whether or not the car is ready for throttle or if we need to wait a little bit longer to avoid smashing that wall. As we come off the first apex, we'll quickly transition to the second apex, aiming to use as much of that curbing as we can manage. On exit, we want to get back to full throttle as soon as possible for a good run down towards the turn 6 braking zone. On this particular lap, I did have to kind of stutter on the throttle because I overcommitted at first. We had to correct just to make sure we weren't going to run into that wall. Turn 5 is this quick kink where we want to hug the wall as closely as possible. Turns 6 and 7 make up a sort of bus stop, and the main thing to consider here is we've got a pretty tight entry that cuts back a bit over 90 degrees, but a quick and open exit. So we want to prioritize that exit by slowing enough and rotating enough at the turn 6 apex so we can get to full throttle early on. We can start by braking right as the white concrete wall ends on the right hand side, and we want to delay our turn in for a later apex to allow us to straighten the car up more quickly on exit. With the later apex, we can get back on throttle as soon as we get to the curbing, and we'll look to get on throttle smoothly but quickly. As we transition to turn 7, we want to hug the turn 7 apex curbing, but allow the car to naturally drift out on exit as we come through turn 7. This will help reduce tire scrub and maximize top speed as we go down this next straight. Turns 8 and 9 make up yet another chicane. Yay! This time we have a new obstacle to deal with though in massive anti-cut curbs at each apex. Luckily the car can handle these anti-cut curbs relatively well as long as we don't send it over them too much and we hit them at the right orientation. We're coming off of a pretty long straight and we also exit onto another longer straight so we can focus on a smooth entry to help us handle these curbs and a good exit, knowing that we have another flat out section to maximize our good exit. We'll start braking as we get under the bridge, and as we turn in towards the apex, we want to start trailing off the brakes. We're going to meet up with the anti-cut curbing a little bit after it starts with our right tires, and we'll use the brakes as we trail off to help control our rotation as we get there. If we hit the curbing too early, it'll send us into a spin by unsettling the car and kind of shooting us off into the distance, which we don't want to do. So we actually want to meet up with the curbing from the side instead of hitting it on the end. As we get to the first apex, we should be roughly pointed at the second apex, and we can start to get back on throttle, knowing that our next target is straight ahead. As the car settles between the two apexes, we can turn in for the second one, and we can aim to take a similar amount of anti-cut curbing before we allow the car to run out to the exit curbing as we look to reduce tire scrub on exit to maximize our straight line speed as we head down towards the hairpin. We finally get a break from all the chicanery with the turn 10 hairpin. The hairpin leads on to the longest straight here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, so we really want to focus on our exit here. This is going to set us up for the ability to attempt overtakes at the end of this straight or defend from the car behind. The shape of the hairpin is actually quite hairpin-esque, so we have a little bit of extra room on exit to get the power down. We can start braking right around the two board, and normally we want to late apex, but given the shape of the exit and the power or lack thereof on the IRO4, we can actually apex in the middle and get back on power there instead. This reduces the amount of distance we have to travel by reducing the amount of track we use, as opposed to running deeper and trying to find that later apex. And our run out of the hairpin really doesn't suffer because we aren't struggling for traction on exit. As we exit, we want to use all of the available track to build up our momentum and reduce tire scrub as we barrel down this long back straight towards the wall of champions where we hopefully don't crash. This little kink on exit is technically turn 11. And believe it or not, this kink is considered turn 12. Turns 13 and 14 make up the Wall of Champion chicane. If you ever plan on becoming a champion, you're supposed to bin it here at least once, so I'm told. What does it mean if you bin it here multiple times? Well, I'm not quite sure, but I'll let you know when I find out. Anyway, this is a tricky chicane because we have those big anti-cut curbs again, and although they do unsettle the car here, using them is our fastest route through the corner. Because things are so tight on exit, we really want to prioritize a smooth entry to make sure we're in complete control as we come out on the other side so we can make any needed corrections to avoid making race-ending contact with this legendary Wall of Champions. We want to start by braking right around the two board or just after we pass the hut on the left, and we're looking to meet up with the anti-cut curb at the apex after it starts, similar to what we did in turn 8 to avoid unsettling the car too much if we hit it too early. As we get to the first apex, we can start to get back on throttle gradually to help us power through the second apex, and essentially as soon as the car lands from this first curb strike, we're quickly transitioning to the second apex. At the second apex, we also want to take a healthy amount of curb, but probably no more than roughly half to avoid bottoming out the car, which will cause us to essentially become a champion. As we land from the second apex, our complete attention should be on how the car is feeling. It's at this point we'll be able to make any small corrections that we need to so we can avoid packing it in early. You can see on this lap I needed to do a bit of counter steering and delay full throttle while I did, which did hinder our exit here just a little bit. On exit, we want to get as close to the wall as we possibly can and essentially clip the end of the red and white striped part that sticks out just a little bit further. I will note that I did tickle the wall here a couple of times and it was surprisingly forgiving, but I don't plan on testing my luck too much. As soon as we know we'll avoid the wall on exit, we want to get back on full throttle to power us across the line to finish our lap here at Montreal. All right, and before we go, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much to everyone who's liked, subscribed, commented, hung out with me on Twitch, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really nice to have positive feedback from you guys and also suggestions when you think I can improve something. But yeah, it's great to hear that these track guides have been helping you out. I hope they continue to help you out. I hope that you have a great week of racing. I think it's going to be a tough one. There are definitely going to be some big wrecks. Hopefully, you can avoid the chaos and enjoy the kind of scary lapping around here at times, getting really close to those walls, but having a good time doing it. Until I see you next time, please take care of yourselves. Good luck and have fun out there.